Today, my topic is Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. We have already discussed 11th chapter of the story. Today, chapter 12. The name of the chapter is The Minister's Vigil. After leaving the house, Dimmesdale walks to the scaffold, where 7 years earlier Easter Prince stood, wearing a sign of shame and holding Pearl. Now, in the damp, cool air of the cloudy May night, Dimmesdale mounts the steps while the town sleeps. Realizing the mockery of his being able to stand there now, safe and unseen, where he should have stood 7 years ago before the townspeople, Dimmesdale is overcome by a self-hatred so terrible that it causes him to cry aloud into the night. Easter and Pearl, who are returning from the Governor Winthrop's deathbed, mount the scaffold, and 3 of them stand hand in hand. Easter and Dimmesdale linked by Pearl. Twice Pearl asks Dimmesdale if he will stand there with them at noon the next day. The minister says he will stand there with them on the great judgment day. As he speaks, a strange light in the sky illuminates the scaffold and its surroundings. Looking up, Dimmesdale seems to see in the sky a dull red light in the shape of an immense letter A. At the same instant, Dimmesdale is aware that Pearl is pointing toward Roger Chillingworth, who stands nearby, grimly smiling up at the 3 people on the scaffold. Overcome with terror, Dimmesdale asks Easter about the true identity of Chillingworth. But remembering her promise to Chillingworth, Easter remains silent. She doesn't reveal the identity of Roger Chillingworth. After the next morning's sermon, the church official startles the minister by returning one of his gloves, which was found on the scaffold. So here that Satan dropped it. That is gloves of Dimmesdale. The Satan is here Chillingworth. The church official also asks about the great red letter A that appeared in the sky the past night. So in this chapter, Hawthorne descriptions of Dimmesdale's action while alone on the scaffold. He demonstrates his mastery of psychological realism. The sudden changes in mood that take place in the minister's tired mind, the self-condemnation for his cowardice, the near insanity of his scream, all are developed convincingly. The first scaffold scene took place during the noon hours and concentrated on Easter's guilt and punishment. But this second scaffold scene occurring at the midnight hours puts both sinners on the scaffold and concentrates on Dimmesdale guilt and punishment. Previously, we have seen Dimmesdale conscious mind attempting to reason through the problem of his concealed guilt. In contrast, in this chapter, we see the tortured workings of his subconscious mind, which is the real source of his agony. While Dimmesdale is forced by Pearl's repeated question to bring the issue into the open, his fear of confession still dominates his subconscious desire to confess. Hawthorne's flair for Gothic details, that is, horror detail, is demonstrated in the appearance of a spectacular and the startling revelation of the diabolical Roger Chillingworth, who is standing near the scaffold. Hawthorne suggests that the A may have appeared only in Dimmesdale's imagination. We impute it solely to the disease in his own eye and heart. That the minister, looking upward to the zenith, beheld there the appearance of an immense letter. While Dimmesdale starting on the scaffold, the three potential observers representing, that is, church, state, and the world of evil, the electric chain of Easter, Pearl, and Dimmesdale. Pearl's appeal to Dimmesdale, the revealing light from the heavens. Chapter 13, the name of the chapter is Another View of Easter. In another angle, we will discuss the character of Easter in this chapter. Following our conversation with Dimmesdale on the scaffold, Easter is shocked by the changes in him. While he seems to have retained his intelligence, his nerve is gone. He is morally weak, and she can only conclude that a terrible machinery had been brought to bear and was still operating on Mr. Dimmesdale's well-being and repose. Easter decides she has an obligation to help this man. 4 years have gone by and Easter's position in the community has totally changed. She has been given credit for bearing her shame with courage, and her life has been one of purity since Pearl's birth. While Dimmesdale's sermons have become more human and praised because of his sufferings, Easter's position has risen because of her charity. Her scarlet A, now it stands for Abel, that is, instead of adultery, now it stands for Abel. But this has come with a price. For this she has sacrificed many things, that is, no friends, no patience, no love, and no affections in her life. Through adversity, Easter has forged a new place for herself on the edge of Puritan society. In contrast, Dimmesdale's mental balance has suffered greatly. Now she must help the man who seems to be on the verge of lunacy. In fact, she feels it has been an error on her part not to step forward before, so she resolves to speak with her husband, Roger Chillingworth. So this chapter is a discussion of Easter's personality, character, an intellect as well as a summary and an update of our past 4 years, because now Pearl is now 7 years old. This other view refers to both the changing perception of the Puritan community toward Easter. Easter's position in the eyes of the Puritan community has totally changed considerably due to her grace and her charity. She has borne her shame and sorrow with great dignity. The town describes her now as one who is so kind to the poor, helpful to the sick, so comfortable to the afflicted. Now the Scarlet Letter has magical qualities and myths are growing around its power. But this new definition of Easter print is not without a price. Her luxuriant beauty and the warmth, charm and passion that she once showed have been replaced by coldness, severity and drabness. There is no affection, love or passion in her life. Her humanity has been stripped from her by the severity of her punishment, and her charity and benevolence seem mechanical. No one crosses the threshold of her cottage in friendship. To add to this burden, her daughter seems to have been born amiss. And this chapter also describes Easter's motive in speaking with Chillingworth. Having seen the terrible toll Chillingworth is taking on Dimmesdale, she decides that she is partly to blame. Now she must do something to redeem her error in not identifying him to her former lover. The next chapter is Easter and the Physician. While walking on the peninsula with Pearl, Easter sees Chillingworth and sends Pearl down to play by the seashore while she speaks with her husband. She is surprised at the changes in Chillingworth, just as she was shocked by Dimmesdale's spiritual element and aging. Realizing Chillingworth is in the grip of the devil, she feels responsible for another ruin. According to Easter, her promise has caused Chillingworth to do evil to the minister, but Chillingworth denies his role at first. Then he admits that although he used to be kind, gentle and affectionate, he now allows evil to use him. The physician believes it is his fate to become a fiend, that is, enemy. He releases Easter from her promise of silence. So during these long 7 years, Chillingworth has become obsessed with revenge, and this deadly sin has changed him considerably. He pities Easter because he feels she is not really sinful, and any breach with God's law has been paid many times over by her wearing of the Scarlet Letter. He further feels that if she had met earlier with a better lover than mine, this evil had not been. On the other hand, he also says it is his fate to change from a kind, true, just man to a fiend who does the devil's work. We see a side of the old scholar, that is Chillingworth, that makes us pity him despite his treatment of Dimmesdale. and we feel that Easter has paid her dues and deserves our respect. Now chapter 15. Here Easter and Pearl. As Chillingworth leaves, Easter recognizes how evil he has become and realizes she hates him. Meanwhile, Pearl has entertained herself quite well. She played with her image in a pool, made boats of birch bark, and threw pebbles at beach birds. Finally, she uses seaweed to make a scarf and then decorates her bosoms with a green letter A. Pearl wants to know what the scarlet letter means. Easter is tempted to tell her because she has no one else in whom she can confide. But despite repeated questions by Pearl, Easter says she wears the letter for the sake of the gold thread. For the first time she said false story about the symbol on her bosom. But here Pearl is not satisfied and continues to asking Easter until Easter threatens to shut Pearl in a dark room. So in this chapter, Easter realizes that Chillingworth set off a chain of events beginning with an unnatural, loveless marriage. Be it sin or no, I hate the man, is her final word on the subject. We hear for the first time her thoughts about her marriage to Chillingworth. He spent long hours among his book. She describes domestic scene as her ugliest remembrance. Two different relationships are presented in this novel. First, in the Easter Chillingworth relationship, as a marriage accepted and legal in every way, but without love and passion. That another relationship is the Easter Demestal relationship, as love and passion, but without marriage. The plot and themes of this novel are set in the Puritan society at the confluence of these two relationships. The pathetic loneliness of Easter's position is obvious in this novel. Easter is strongly tempted to talk with Pearl, but then decides to keep the story to herself. The next chapter is A Forest Walk. For several days, Easter tries unsuccessfully to intercept Demestal on one of his frequent walks along the shore or through the woods. When she hears that he will be returning from a trip, she goes with Pearl into the forest, hoping to meet the minister on his return home. As she and Pearl walk along the narrow path through the dense wood, flickering gleams of sunshine break through the heavy grey clouds above them. Pearl suggests the sunshine is running away from Easter because of the A on her bosom. In contrast, Pearl, being a child without any such letter, runs and catches a patch of light. Then as Easter approaches, the sunshine disappears. Pearl asks Easter to tell her about the black man. She has heard stories about him and questions Easter about her dealings with him and whether the scarlet letter is his mark. Under Pearl's questioning, Easter confesses, "Once in my life I met the black man. This scarlet letter is his mark." And having reached the depth of the forest, Easter and Pearl sit on a heap of moss beside a brook. Just then, footsteps are heard on the path, and Easter sends Pearl away, but not before the girl asks whether it is the black man approaching and whether Dimmesdale holds his hands over his heart to cover the black man's sign. Before Easter can answer, Dimmesdale comes upon them. The minister looks haggard and feeble and moves lifelessly as though he has no purpose or desire to live. He holds his hand over his heart. So in this chapter, the narrow footpath through the dense forest is suggestive of the moral wilderness. Easter has been forced to follow for the past 7 years. The story of the black man and his mark is described as a common superstition. Yet for Easter, the black man and his mark have a special personal meaning. Here Hawthorne connects the letter with the black man and eventually with the Dimmesdale burden, and he does so mainly through their conversation. Pearl, being a product of passion, seems to speak to nature and understand its wildness and beauty. She sees how the sunshine loves her yet disappears for Easter. Added to this insight is the idea that Easter hopes Pearl will never have to wear a scarlet letter, a symbol of a sinful act. Pearl has not yet had a grief that will fill her with compassion and sympathy, humanizing her as Easter has been humanized. Chapter 17. The Pastor and his Parishioner. As Dimmesdale walks in the wilderness, returning from a visit with Apostle Eliot, he hears Easter's voice and is surprised by her presence. At first, he cannot tell whether she is a human or a ghost. In fact, they are both ghosts of their former selves, and their chill hands and hesitant words reveal the strangeness of this meeting. Both Easter and Dimmesdale talk with each other about the past 7 years, and Dimmesdale confesses his misery and unhappiness, while Easter consoles him and mentions people reverence for him. The minister feels his guilt and hypocrisy even more. He compares his silence with her public confession and realizes how his hidden guilt is tormenting him. Easter, realizing how deeply her silence has permitted Dimmesdale to be tortured by her husband, seizes the moment to reveal Chillingworth's secret. This torture has led to insanity and that eternal alienation from the good and true, of which madness is perhaps the earthly type. Easter also realizes that she still loves Dimmesdale, and she begs his forgiveness for her silence. The minister reacts to this revelation with anger at first, blaming her for his torture and realizing why he intuitively recoiled from Chillingworth on their first encounter. Easter, who has silently borne the disdain and scorn of the community and who has lived these 7 years without human sympathy, cannot bear Demester's condemnation, and she falls beside him and cries, "Thou shalt forgive me, let God punish, thou shalt forgive." She hugs him with great tenderness and feels such a compassion for his sorrow that her 7 years of punishment seem to fall away. Demestel, for his part, forgives her and asks God to forgive them both. He believes that Chillingworth is the worst sinner of them all because he violated in cold blood the sanctity of the human heart, unlike he and she who never did so. They are reluctant to leave this place in the forest because here they find a peace and harmony that they cannot feel in the Puritan community. Demestel fears Chillingworth's course now that he no doubt knows her purpose to reveal his true character, and he asks Easter to give him courage. Easter's plan is for Demestel to go deeper into the wilderness and live in natural freedom, away from the eyes of Puritan society, or to return to Europe, where he will be free of these iron men and their opinions. But Demestel feels he has not the strength to do either, while he falters. Easter encourages him, claiming that he can lead a powerful life for good and still fulfill his mission on earth. When the minister says he cannot do this alone, she tells him she will go with him. So, in this chapter, Demestel is reluctant to leave because he believes God has given him a post which he must not desert. This wilderness of God's world is in need of his gifts. Easter assures him that he can do God's will in another place, that is Europe. And it is only the Puritan laws that hold him in bondage. He can preach, write, act, and live a true life in Europe instead of dying, as he seems to be doing here in the wilderness with fear and shame by his side. Easter knows they can leave the Puritan colony and still have a life of spiritual richness. They have paid for their sins and can still respect and uphold God's law. Demestel, on the other hand, lacks this perspective and Easter's courage, and several times he calls on her for strength. In many ways, Easter wants to convince Demestel, but Demestel doesn't listen the words of Easter. The words of Easter doesn't convince Demestel, but Easter wants to leave that Puritan society and they want to go to Europe, but Demestel doesn't bother anything and he doesn't realize anything. But he wants to leave this world, that is, he wants to die, to escape from all these sufferings. So far, chapter 17 over. Remaining chapter we will discuss in my next session. Thank you.